The story of Buddha.
Siddhartha Gautama. He is commonly known as the Buddha. He was born in Nepal around 500 BC. He was born into a royal Hindu family, the son of a king.
Kapilavastu is a small kingdom located in a serene surroundings in Himalayas. Though the kingdom was small, its fame was spread far and wide. The ruling king of Kapilavastu was Suddhodana and his queen was Maya Devi. One day, Queen Maya Devi dreamt a very strange dream, wherein a white elephant with 6 tusks poked into her womb. Though the dream was terrifying, she sensed a very pleasant feeling within her. 10 months later, Queen Maya Devi left to her father's place, Lumbini.
Buddhist teaching says that the Buddha spent more than 100,000 past lives as an animal or human. When he came out of his mother's womb, he immediately stood, walked 7 paces, and said that he was the foremost being in the world and that this would be his last rebirth. Now, even Buddhist scholars admit that the story of the Buddha has become largely mythological.
On the way, she gave birth to a male child. After the birth of the child, the surroundings became suddenly very calm and quiet. When the king got the news, he brought back his wife and child from Lumbini to his palace. Just then, sage Asitha came to visit them. The king and the queen named their son as Siddhartha. This boy is a blessed child. He will either be famous as king of kings, or he shall be a great sage. The king had high hopes that his son would be a great king. On the 7th day, Queen Mayavati suffered from acute illness. She summoned her sister, Prajapati, and took an oath from her that she would bring up Siddhartha as her own son, saying that Mayavati died. Siddhartha grew up, receiving all the motherly care and love from Prajapati.
At the age of 16, Siddhartha's father arranged for him a marriage to his cousin Yasodhara. Siddhartha's father wanted him to grow up to be a king and not to be exposed to the common world. To prevent Siddhartha from taking up a religious life, his father had a high wall built around the palace and surrounding grounds. Siddhartha grew up with everything. He had 3 palaces, servants, musicians, hunting grounds, and dancing girls. But still, one day Siddhartha demanded to see his lands and his people.
Some years passed by. Dandapani, a Sakyan noble, arranged the Swayamvara of his daughter, Yashodhara. Princes from far and near came to the Swayamvara. Yashodhara chose Siddhartha as her husband. Dandapani was unhappy by his daughter's choice. When Siddhartha heard the news, he agreed to take all the different tests he was put under by the king. He succeeded in all these tests, and thus Siddhartha and Yashodhara were married with great pomp, living a life in great luxuries. Siddhartha was curious to explore the world outside his palace. The king permitted Siddhartha to go ahead. A few days later, Siddhartha drove in a beautiful chariot through the streets of the city. As he drove further,
his father had the city streets cleaned, decorated, and cleared of any sick or dead people, then let his son go. Despite his father's preparations, Siddhartha still witnessed what are now called the 4 troubling sights. These included a hunched-over old man, a sick man, and a funeral procession.
Saw an old man.
Channa, who is this? His head is white. He seems very weak. His skin is wrinkled.
He is an old man, master. He is bent with age.
Does everyone get old, Channa? Will my Yashodhara also grow old? Will I grow old too, with my strength going away with years?
Yes, my lord.
Stop the chariot, Channa. Who is this man who looks so calm and different from all the other men I have seen?
Siddhartha was told that everyone would become old, everyone might get sick, and everyone would someday die. After seeing these things, Siddhartha was heartbroken. He suddenly saw life as temporary and meaningless. The fourth sight was a Hindu monk begging for food. After seeing the calmness in the monk's expression, Siddhartha decided that that was the lifestyle for him.
What's the matter with this man, Channa?
He is ill, my lord.
Is disease peculiar to him?
No, my lord. Anyone may fall ill in his lifetime.
Even I?
Yes, master. Even you and me.
Why are they carrying that man, Channa?
He is dead, my lord.
Is he the only dead man? Or do others also die?
Everyone who is born has to die someday.
Siddhartha was told that everyone would become old, everyone might get sick, and everyone would someday die. After seeing these things, Siddhartha was heartbroken. He suddenly saw life as temporary and meaningless. The fourth sight was a Hindu monk begging for food. After seeing the calmness in the monk's expression, Siddhartha decided that that was the lifestyle for him.
I feel sick, Channa. Let us return back to the palace.
Yes, my lord.
Age 29, he left his wife, newborn son, and all the riches of a prince to be a monk.
Before leaving, the prince returned to the bedroom of his wife. He saw his wife and child fast asleep. He left the place without disturbing them. left on his chariot with Channa. Further, he gave away all his belongings to Channa and asked him to return to the palace. Siddhartha went in search of the great sages of those days.
He studied Hinduism for 6 years, but was disappointed and wanted another path.
He entered into the thick jungles of Urubilwar. Siddhartha drank only water and ate only fruits and herbs. He slept on the hard ground. After some time, he started eating only one heap grain every day. This made him weak. He realized that starving does not help in reaching the truth.
a village girl offered Siddhartha her bowl of rice. And for the first time in years, he tasted proper food. But when the ascetics saw their master bathing and eating like an ordinary person, they felt betrayed, as if Siddhartha had given up the great search for enlightenment.
Come and eat with me.
You have betrayed your vows, Siddhartha.
You have given up the search.
We can no longer follow you.
We can no longer learn from you.
To learn is to change. The path to enlightenment is in the middle way. It is the line between all opposite extremes.
If I can reach enlightenment, may this bowl float upstream.
The middle way was the great truth Siddhartha had found, the path he would teach to the world.
According to Buddhist teachings, he was sitting under a tree, and when the sun rose, his mind was filled with supreme knowledge. Siddhartha Gautama spent the next 45 years of his life wandering through India, teaching people his path to enlightenment. His teachings included what are known as the Four Noble Truths. The idea of the Four Noble Truths are: life consists of suffering. We suffer because we desire things that are temporary. The way to free oneself from suffering is by eliminating all desire. Desires can be eliminated by following the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path consists of goals for ethical conduct. The teachings of Siddhartha Gautama have become the religion of Buddhism, the fourth largest religion.
He moved towards a bodhi tree and sat beneath it. He had to bear heat, cold and rain, but he did not give up. Visions of the life of pleasure floated before his eyes, but nothing could tempt him.
I'm going closer.
Mara had tried to tempt Siddhartha in the cleverest of ways, by disguising the temptations of life in the simplest forms. But Siddhartha...
According to Buddhist teachings, he was sitting under a tree, and when the sun rose, his mind was filled with supreme knowledge. Siddhartha Gautama spent the next 45 years of his life wandering through India, teaching people his path to enlightenment. His teachings included what are known as the Four Noble Truths. The idea of the Four Noble Truths are: life consists of suffering. We suffer because we desire things that are temporary. The way to free oneself from suffering is by eliminating all desire. Desires can be eliminated by following the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path consists of goals for ethical conduct. The teachings of Siddhartha Gautama have become the religion of Buddhism, the fourth largest religion in the world.
Siddhartha arrived at Bodh Gaya. Here his torment would end. He sat down beneath a tree and vowed not to leave until he had reached enlightenment. Flesh may decay, bones may fall apart, but I will never leave this place until I find the way to enlightenment.
He's no longer giving himself a hard time, he's not stressing himself unbearably, he's not undergoing anything painful. He thinks, well, life is painful enough without taking the trouble to make it more painful, but let me just calmly think things out, think of how life works.
He starts to focus the mind by attention to the slow movement of the breath coming in and going out, and to the refined sensation which exists in the body, perhaps just around the nose, in a way which starts to lead to the mind quietening, stilling, settling, gathering, purifying.
Siddhartha's mind was now so focused that he could successfully enter the darkest reaches of his unconscious. It was now that he would face his final and greatest torment. The demon Mara, the lord of ego and illusion, appeared before him. He could make any horror real in Siddhartha's mind.
It's very important to remember that Mara, this demon king, is not like the Christian Satan, because he isn't a tempter and he isn't any kind of counterpart to God. He is purely psychological, the psychological forces which we have within us.
He saw a bright light. Siddhartha became the Buddha, the enlightened one. He returned to preach what he had known and experienced. He did this out of compassion for his fellow beings. Today, he has followers all over the world, but the largest number are concentrated in far eastern countries. He is a saying, He has given up life of pleasure and pain in search of truth.
Gautama spent the next 45 years of his life wandering through India, teaching people his path to enlightenment. His teachings included what are known as the Four Noble Truths. The idea of the Four Noble Truths are: life consists of suffering. We suffer because we desire things that are temporary. The way to free oneself from suffering is by eliminating all desire. Desires can be eliminated by following the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path consists of goals for ethical conduct. The teachings of Siddhartha Gautama have become the religion of Buddhism, the fourth largest religion in the world.